Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Franchise Hockey Manager 9 playthrough of the Chicago Blackhawks. We are about 3/4 of the way through the 2030 to 2031 NHL season, just a day ahead of the trade deadline, and the Blackhawks are having a great run. 95 points is by far the best in the Western Conference, and we are up 4 points on the Detroit Red Wings with a game in hand for the best record in hockey, which would represent a third consecutive President's Trophy for our Blackhawks. So the season's been going very well. This is going to be our final season as general manager slash coach of the Blackhawks. So we are hoping to go out with a title. Because of that, we've been looking at any potential opportunities there are for trades. You can see we are just barely under the salary cap like right now, and we like our team very much. Obviously, we've been very successful on the ice this year. So I have been looking and perusing for a relatively inexpensive player who's also very good. And there are a handful of them out there, as you can see. But all of these players, whether they're right wings, centers, left defensemen, left wings, any position out there, these guys kind of in this type of salary range, or even the guys who are making $2.4 million, a little older, that we could potentially bring on. We've put packages together consisting of, in the case of the more expensive players, Matthias Laferriere, who's a veteran right winger for us, making about $1.85 million that we'd need to include in the trade to bring them on board. And even with Laferriere and 4 number 1 picks, we can't land any of these players. Somewhat similarly, if we offer 4 number 1 picks and a decent young player kind of making in the range of what these guys are making, that doesn't get a deal done either. So given that we are so close to the salary cap, I just don't see there being an obvious move for us to make, unfortunately. As I mentioned, fortunately, we are pretty healthy right now, so the goal is to definitely stay as healthy as possible for the last 19 games of the season, so we can hopefully make a long run that will result in the Blackhawks lifting the Stanley Cup trophy for the second time in this playthrough. But right now, it appears that we're likely to be going at it with the roster that we have right now, which is fine. It's obviously one of the best rosters in all of hockey. I'm still going to keep spending a few more minutes seeing if I can pull something interesting together, but not real confident that we're going to make a trade before the deadline. And it just doesn't seem like there's any trade to be had. So, as I mentioned, we've got the best record in hockey right now. We are the best team in hockey. We've been the best regular season team in hockey for closing in on 3 years at this point. So there's no urgency to make a trade, obviously, with the fact that this is our last season and that we do have some number 1 picks of our own and other teams stocked up. Would obviously love to empty the vault, so to speak, to try to bring on someone who can be a difference maker. But with the contract situation, we can't take on a lot of salary. And given that team harmony is great at this point and the team is performing really well on the ice together, I don't think there's any reason to make a more significant move and break up the chemistry that we have been developing with these players over the last 6 months or so, and with many of them for years in the past at this point. And of course, now that we're past the trade deadline, the injuries starting to add up here. Quentin Byfield going to be out 3 weeks with an injury. He's been a productive center for us this year on the first line, so that will certainly hurt. And we also currently have the defenseman Simon Nemec on the injured list as well. Nothing too significant with either of those injuries. The players should be back before the playoffs, certainly I would think in both cases without a doubt. But clearly don't want there to be any more significant injuries over these last month of the season or so. And the results on the ice remain good. Cole Sillinger now also day-to-day with an injury. Doesn't look like it's going to be too serious, though. Keep him out for 1 to 2 weeks, though, so we may put him on the IL just to be careful. Nemec's still day-to-day at this point. Byfield's still 2 to 3 weeks out. So as we get to the mid of March here, you can see with 105 points, we've been playing really well. We're now up 10 on the Red Wings, although they do have a game in hand on us. And we are up 15 on the Kraken for the best record in the Western Conference, although they do have 2 games in hand on us. But with just 13 games to go, our lead is not insurmountable, but it's getting to be a very tough hill to climb for the teams that are chasing us. So from that perspective, I'd rather be careful with the guys who are a little banged up, put them on the IL, bring up some reinforcements from the AHL, and try to keep the team in general as healthy as possible as we close in on the end of March. And another day, another injury, and this one definitely more significant. Suffered in a 4-3 overtime loss at home to Vancouver. Julian Mays with a fractured fibula. He is a guy who's been up and down this season between the big club and Rockford. Obviously spent most of his time with Chicago. Did bring him back up over the last week or two when some of those injuries started to hit our front line. So he wasn't going to be a major contributor to the playoff push if everyone is healthy, most likely, but clearly does limit our depth at the back end of the roster. Given a fractured fibula, I can't imagine he's going to function too well, so we are not going to delay his treatment. And Mays is going to go right onto the injured list at this point. 23-year-old closes out the season with 9 points in 24 games, -5 on the year, playing barely 9 minutes of ice time when he was on the ice. So has typically been a fourth-line player for us when he's been healthy. And obviously, if we're going to have someone who we lose for a long stretch of time, unfortunately for Mr. Mays, I'd rather have it be him than some of the other players on our team. Guess I need to go here to the roster list to actually send him to the injury list. So Mays is done for the year, and we'll hope that we get Sillinger and Byfield back in the not-so-distant future. And of course, right after we were talking how well the Blackhawks had been holding up, we've hit a rough patch here. You can see we've lost 4 games in a row at this point, including 3 at home. 2 of them were overtime losses, so not a complete lost week for us. But the standings have definitely tightened up on us. Still lead the NHL with 107 points, but only 5 up on the Red Wings with 9 games to go. And we are 9 up on Seattle with 9 games to go, and they've got a game in hand on us after they just beat us yesterday. Injury situation still sorting itself out. Sillinger and Byfield are both day-to-day at this point. Matteo Rotundi also day-to-day with a minor neck laceration. So if we don't have any other significant injuries over the last few weeks of the season, we're in decent shape. As I mentioned, Mays was not going to be a key contributor in the playoffs unless we have a lot of injuries. So hopefully that won't be the case. And as we get closer to the end of March, Cole Sillinger is back off of the IL. So now at this point, we're just waiting for Quinton Byfield. Lost another game since the last time we checked in to Dallas. We've got back-to-backs on the road the next couple days against St. Louis and Nashville, and then home against Colorado to finish off the month. The standings are getting a little tight for us. You can see we're only up 4 points now on the Red Wings for the best record in hockey. Fortunately, we do have 2 games in hand on them, but with games on the road at St. Louis and at Nashville. We're playing against division rivals who are both competing for a playoff spot at this point. So certainly not expecting these next two on the road to be easy. And fortunately, we got some good news. Quentin Byfield ready for some more drills. More importantly, for the near term, we swept those two games on the road, beat St. Louis 5-4, and then Nashville 5-2. So that has definitely stabilized things a little bit. Was worried with those two games on the road, but now you can see we are 6 up on the Red Wings with a game in hand and 6 to go. So haven't quite clinched the best record in hockey yet, but certainly feeling better about it after winning those 2 road games back to back. And we did close out the month of March with a nice 7-2 win at home against Colorado. So that was big for us. Haven't quite clinched a 3rd straight President's Trophy, but we're getting close. Byfield almost ready to go, as you can see. Development report actually pretty good with Roy Chung, Luke Coughlin, Xavier Veilleux, and Nathan Villeneuve all improving. Matthias Lafreniere, we had been talking about potentially trying to trade him away. He's getting a little weaker at this point in terms of his skills. We are still selling a lot of Blackhawks jerseys, which I guess is positive. Taking a look at the standings, 5 games to go, and we have not quite clinched the best record in the Western Conference over the Kraken yet, because they do have a game in hand on us. And we're also 8 points up on the Red Wings, who have played the same number of games as we have, so could certainly clinch in the next couple of games. Taking a look at our schedule for the month of April, home against the Capitals and the Kings, at Florida and Arizona, and then we finish off with a home game against Arizona in a home-and-home series. They're the last 2 days of the regular season. And we lost our first game of the month here yesterday to the Capitals 3-1. And Nathan Villeneuve, as you can see, is day-to-day right now, although it doesn't seem like a significant injury. But the Red Wings are making it interesting for us. They've closed to within 4 points. We've got 4 games left to play. They've only got 3 left to play. So we're not in a horrible spot, even though we have not been playing well. We're close to clinching over the Kraken. Also, we basically just need 1 more point, and then they won't be able to catch us because we've got so many wins. So we're getting close to being able to clinch, as I mentioned, a 3rd straight President's Trophy, but we're not quite there yet. Certainly a win tomorrow at home against Los Angeles would be a big step in the right direction. Also want to go into the playoffs feeling good about the way this team is playing, and certainly would feel better if we win perhaps 3 of our last 4 games at this point. The Kings certainly seems like a winnable one. And then I mentioned at Florida and 2 against Arizona. Florida also a bottom dweller, and then the 2 games against Arizona likely to be more competitive. So would think that we certainly want to win these games against the Kings and the Panthers, and then if we can split the home and home with Arizona, probably head into the playoffs feeling pretty decent about the way that we're playing. And we did get a shutout win at home yesterday against the Kings, so that is very positive in terms of us achieving our goals. The Red Wings actually can't catch us at this point. The most they can get is to 114 points, and Seattle can't catch us either. So we do have a 3rd consecutive President's Trophy, as we've talked about in previous episodes. Hasn't meant much in the playoffs the last 2 seasons. We were bounced in the 2nd round 2 seasons ago, and we were shocked in the 1st round last year. So it's great that we're going to have home ice advantage for as long as we are alive in the playoffs. Hopefully we can do more with that home ice advantage than we have over the last 2 seasons. You can see with that shutout yesterday, Wallstedt continues to make a strong case for the Vezina, leading the league in wins and 2nd in save percentage and goals against, behind only Mr. Eric Olson from the Red Wings in those 2 categories. But Olsen, you can see, has only played 17 games this year. Has a nice 12-3 record with 3 shutouts. But clearly would think that we're basically the leader in goals against and save percentage among the goalies with significant playing time. Also leading the league in wins, and certainly will not be passed at this point. So would think that Wallstedt is a very strong candidate to win the Vezina, but the main goal is for our Blackhawks to be hoisting the Stanley Cup in about 2.5 months. And we did end up winning at Florida as well. So now we are at Arizona and home against Arizona and a home and home to end the season. So at this point, the goal is just to keep the team as healthy as possible over these next 2 games. And we won yesterday at Arizona, so the final game of the season coming up today. We are going to scratch Quinn Hughes, Kent Johnson, and Isaac Rosen, 3 of our better and more accomplished veteran players. Hopefully no injuries at all, but certainly there won't be any injuries involving those 3 players since they're going to be on the bench here for the final game of the season. And we won the final game of the season yesterday, home against Arizona 5-3. So a magical season for the Blackhawks, 58-19-5. Not quite the type of season that the Boston Bruins are having in the NHL this year, but not too far off the pace. We ended up having the best record in the Western Conference by 13 points over the Kraken. Best record in hockey by 7 points over the Red Wings. So we will once again have home ice advantage for as long as we are involved in the playoffs. And hopefully it will be a longer run than we've experienced in recent years, as I was just talking about. Wallstedt, again, seems like a lock for the Vezina with 48 wins, a 231 goals against, and a 926 save percentage. Kent Johnson ended up with 40 goals and 53 assists, 93 points this year. So his in an incredible plus 47, as you can see there. So his second year with the team, even more successful than his first. And certainly our expectations after being unceremoniously bounced in the first round of the playoffs last year are that this team will achieve more in the playoffs this season than we did a year ago. And we will find out what type of progress we're able to make towards that goal of a second Stanley Cup title with these Blackhawks in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.